February 24th, 12:14 p.m. District Court, courtroom number 9. The court will now reconvene for the trial of Miss Lana Skye. Ahmed didn't come back. Allow me to call the next witness to the stand. The officer in charge of guarding the evidence room of the day of the crime. Witness, please state your name and occupation. Me, partner? Oh, I'm just a man, same as you, wandering the trails of civilization. Occasionally helping the elderly cross intersections when needed. Yes, we get it. Oh, I know. You're a patrolman. That would be what that is, Judge. As for my name, if you listen hard enough, you can hear the howling wind calling it out. To be exact, it's Jake Marshall, Your Honor. Howling wind? Never heard Edgeworth described that way before. Now, Mr. Marshall, let me ask you something. You were in charge of guarding the evidence room on the day of the crime took place. Is this correct? According to the papers, partner. What do you mean? A desperado soul is as boundless as the desert sands. No paper can sum it up. Maybe it's best we get on with this quickly. Please share with us your testimony of the day of the crime. So we can rip it apart. In plain old English. So we can rip that apart since we know we've got your bloody fingerprints. My job was to keep a wary eye on that bone orchard. They said I was supposed to make rounds 3 times a day, but that ain't my style. Besides, the room's protected by 2 security systems anyway. If I remember right, I was at a street-side saloon at the time it went down. I'm just an innocent traveling man, so if you're out of ammo, each time I hit the trail. Wow. I can't say I particularly care for your attitude. I can't say I care for your beard, but you don't see me complaining. Wait a minute. What do you mean by 2 security systems? I mean the security cameras and the ID card reader. I reckon even a cowpoke like you knows about them. Yes, well, what about the fingerprint-activated locks in the evidence lockers? Fingerprint-activated locks? What kind of newfangled doohickeys are those? He's not being very helpful. He's not that good with machines or with following orders. Everyone's got their weaknesses now, don't they, Mr. Prosecutor? This one seems like trouble. Okay, Mr. Wright, he's all yours. Can he not be all mine? Let's keep worrying on that bone orchard. Said I was supposed to make rounds 3 times a day, but that ain't my style. Whatever, that's fine. No, we didn't. Besides, they're checked by 2 security systems anyways. If I remember right, I was at a street-side saloon at the time it went down. That is not true. I've got your bloody handprint there. Whoa. Officer Marshall, doesn't it strike you as odd? That is, you being called in to testify like this? After all, you weren't in the security room at the time of the crime. And yet you dragged me down here. Explain yourselves, partner. It's quite simple. You left a very large trail behind at the scene. Or to be exact, a handprint. Oh, listen real good, partner. Like I said, I'm the caretaker of that crypt. I pay my respects, that is. Makes my rounds about once a month. It's only natural my fingerprints be in there. I only wish it were, officer. But you see, your fingerprints were covered in blood. Witness, what's the meaning of this? Your blood-stained fingerprints were at the crime scene? Blood was wiped away, however. A luminol test clearly revealed this. Well, Officer Marshall? It seems to me there ain't a person in this room with a head on his shoulders. I take it you have an explanation then, Officer Marshall. About the blood-stained fingerprints. Very well, you may begin your testimony about your fingerprints found at the scene of the crime. Now, there we go. Like I said, it's only natural for my fingerprints to be in that evidence room. One of them just happened to be at the same place as the blood-stained handprint. The murderer touched the locker where my fingerprint was by chance. The bloodstain and the fingerprint are completely unrelated. Or didn't you know the murderer was wearing gloves? See, I had nothing to do with it. The witness' explanation appears valid, although there's room for doubt. Life wouldn't be fun without any doubt, partner. The defense may now cross-examine the witness. This guy's hiding something. I can feel it. Now's my chance to prove it. Bloodstained fingerprint. Like I said, it's only natural for my fingerprints to be in the evidence room. Well, let's press that. You're supposed to watch the evidence room, not be in it, right? That's because you, how did you put it, pay your respects once a month? Yeah, that's right. And one more thing. That locker happens to be mine. What? What do you mean? I mean what I said. That's the locker I used when I was a detective. The locker I still use. All that's in there now, though, is a heap of broken dreams. I see. It'd be strange if my prints weren't all over that locker. Apparently his fingerprint data was never removed from that locker's programming. He must have been using the fingerprint lock all this time without ever knowing it. On Marshall's own lock, the print has been wiped. One of them just happened to be at the same place the bloodstained handprint. Let's press that. So then, what about the bloody handprint? It wasn't mine, it's no mystery. Please explain. My locker is covered with my fingerprints. It just so happened. I touched the locker where my fingerprint was by chance. Okay, fine, I don't really need to press that. Let's stay in the fingerprint are completely unrelated. Press. I don't know. Unrelated. They're as different as night and day. Kind of like cereal and cereal. One's got to do with breakfast, while the other's a type of murder. He's right. Although seemingly alike, they're totally different. That's like the worst comparison ever. I don't see what hominins have to do with this. Didn't you know the murderer was wearing gloves? Wait, how do you know the murderer was wearing gloves? How do you know that? I may be a loner, but I still do my job. I keep up on the reports. There was a bloodstain at the scene, thought to be left by the murderer. That's right. It was found on Detective Gumshoe's locker. However, no fingerprints were detected on that handprint. Oh yeah, I think we tried that too. So that would mean the murderer wearing gloves happened to place their hand on top of Officer Marshall's fingerprint. That's the only logical conclusion. Are you starting to get the picture, partner? The picture? This seal of blood is in the desert. It's just food for the buzzards. There's only one reality, and that's this. Security tape. So long as my trail isn't in there, you can't say otherwise. This isn't getting us anywhere, Mr. Wright. Please consider carefully where you're going with this cross-examination. Yes, Your Honor. Now then, continue your testimony, Officer Marshall. Too bad it wasn't me in that video, right, partner? Is this where I have to prove he's in there? Do I press that? We're gonna check that again. Is there anything that proves it's him? I don't think there's anything in this videotape. Yeah, you're down. The locker's open. Let's press it. I don't think I got anything against it, but we can at least press it. What do you mean by that? You want to tie me to this crime, isn't that right, partner? If so, that video is the only direct evidence you have. But that video is next to useless. It's full of blind spots. Blind spots? Places you can't see. Camera's panning back and forth. The floor isn't showing. If someone's familiar with the camera's positions, they could leave the room without being caught on tape. We don't have time for your speculations, Mr. Wright. Well, Mr. Wright, if you can show us evidence in this video that indicates Officer Marshall was present, please do so now. Well, let's try. Very well. Allow me to point out your mistake, Officer Marshall. Tread carefully, Mr. Wright, or you might wind up being the one making the mistake. Now then, let's have another look at that video. Show us this incriminating evidence. Okay, let's fast forward a little bit, because we're not interested in that side, we're interested in this side. Since we already know and we've pegged everything over here, I think what we're interested in is the locker he claims is his. Attack, attack. Nothing, we're gonna go back, and if there's anything, it's gonna be on this pass to the left. Right there. Okay. Take that. Bringing our attention back to the security camera is a mistake I'm afraid you'll soon not forget, Officer Marshall. Days are short, Dixes, and so are our tempers. Could you sum up what you have to say in 8 words or less? Very well. You can clearly be seen in this video. Exactly 8 words, not bad, partner. The key lies in a certain locker shown in the video. Nailed it. The locker with the white cloth sticking out. That was the witnesses, I believe. Now then, let's rewind the video a bit. Rewinding, rewinding. Rewinding, rewinding. Oh my gosh, there's no white cloth. Oh, the white cloth, it's gone. What's the meaning of this, Officer Marshall? When the crime took place, the white cloth wasn't there. Then it suddenly appeared. There's only one explanation. Officer Marshall, you were in the evidence room at the time of the crime. What's more, you opened your locker when the camera was turned away. Order, order. It would seem that you only... Hold your horses, sorry, partner. But you got the wrong man. So what if my locker was opened? That doesn't mean I'm the one who opened it. The murderer needed to hide something, so he opened the locker and stuck it in. It's not my fault he happened to choose mine. Why is everyone staring at me like I'm wanted man? This guy isn't just playing dumb. He really doesn't know. I hate to rain on your parade, but you're the only person who can open that particular locker. Oh yeah? I call your bluff. You say I opened that locker. Now prove it. I don't know which one I'd be using here. Hold on. There it is. Evidence locker. A fingerprint sensor. We talked about this earlier today. The lockers can only be opened by the detectives they belong to. What kind of crazy talk is this? Well, Detective Gumshoe did mention something about this. In any case, the locks aren't that obvious. There are even some people in the force that don't know about that fingerprints locks. So, Sheriff, what do you have to say in 8 words or less? I only got 1 word for you, partner. No. Sure. Order, order, order. Witness, explain yourself. If this is a joke, it's the worst I ever heard. I assure you this is no joke, Officer Marshall. Now then, please tell us what you were doing in the evidence room at the time of the crime.
Wright, please answer the question.
What is he now, a bullfighter? That's all right, Officer Marshall. I believe we can figure the rest out from here.
We can?
Have a look at these floor plans. There is no place for someone to hide in the evidence room. Yet Officer Meekins didn't see Officer Marshall.
If that's so, then where was the witness?
It seems Mr. Wright has an answer. That's right, the only possible conclusion.
Well then, let's hear it.
Where was Officer Marshall at the time of the crime? Well, I mean... he was... Right. Wait. This one, right? There's V the victim, K the killer? This one? It's not that, it's the other one. Officer Marshall was standing right here. Okay, that's right.
There, but that's where the victim, Detective Goodman, was.
Correct, unless the man wasn't Detective Goodman. I believe the victim in the video is Officer Marshall. It was you dressed up like Detective Goodman. But that's preposterous. Officer Meekins witnessed the detective at the crime scene. Once he saw the man's face, he'd know for sure. May I point out, though, that Officer Meekins did not know Detective Goodman. He also testified about the man's reaction when confronted. When I entered the evidence room, I asked him to show his card, sir. Yes, and how did Detective Goodman respond? He suddenly pulled a knife on me. Something about the officer's story puzzled me. If the man had had his ID card, why didn't he just show it?
Yes, he would have needed it to enter the evidence room, so he must have been carrying it.
The answer is simple. He couldn't show it. As you can see, Detective Goodman's picture is on his ID card.
Oh, I get it.
If he showed that, his cover would have been blown. Officer Meekins would have realized the man wasn't Detective Goodman. Do you have anything to say to this, Officer Marshall? You've got quite an imagination, partner. Got a term for that. It's called circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial evidence? He's still denying it. You're gonna have to do better than that to break a detective, unless you have hard evidence proving I dressed up as the victim.
I can't say I particularly care for your uncooperative disposition.
I can't say I care for your beard, but you don't see me complaining.
Well, Mr. Wright, do you have any evidence proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that Officer Marshall dressed up as the victim?
Well, who am I kidding? I don't have anything like that. We might. I can see the fear in your eyes, partner. Seems you're the one who could take the desert heat. This can't be happening. It's obvious he's the one. What can I do? Humph. It looks like your lack of experience has finally been exposed. I'll pass on to you what someone told me when I was just starting out. When you've run into a wall with no place to go, return to the basics. The basics? For me, that would be what Mia used to tell me. Phoenix, try thinking outside the box. I shouldn't look for proof that Officer Marshall was in disguise. But rather, I should look for evidence that came about because he was in disguise. Why do you think this locker was opened in the first place?
What do you mean?
There's no reason for Officer Marshall to open his locker at the time of the crime. Yet he did, despite the chance it might be discovered later as it has been. Which means he didn't originally plan to open his locker.
According to the defense's argument, Officer Jake Marshall dressed up as Detective Goodman at the time of the crime. Then, after the crime was committed, he opened his own locker for some unknown reason.
He's probably got the broken knife in there? Like the top part? Or it's part of that broken jar. The fact that a white cloth sticking out of the locker seems to indicate that. He opened it in order to put the cloth inside.
So what exactly is this piece of cloth?
Perhaps the video is the key to all our unanswered questions. I don't have any evidence, so this video is my only shot.
Very well. Let's take yet another look at the security tape. To commit the crime, the witness opened the locker to put away the white cloth. Please show us why the witness had to open his locker.
Oh, I can fast forward a bit here. Oh, I got it. Got blood on himself. For some reason, you disguise yourself as Detective Goodman and entered the evidence room, though I don't know to what end yet. However, something unexpected happened. Officer Meekins barged in on you. When asked to show your ID card, you pulled a knife on him. However, Officer Meekins panicked, and the white coat you were wearing was soiled with blood.
A bloody white coat.
You couldn't just walk out like that, so you hid the coat in your locker. Not bad, partner.
Now then, Officer Marshall, are you ready to tell us the truth?
Looks like I underestimated y'all. I hope you're happy now, Mr. Edgeworth. 2 years ago, if you were only half as persistent then as you are today, we all wouldn't have to be here now, would we? Officer Marshall, tell the court what you did. All of it. Hello, Lady Hawk. All right. It seems the time has come. Marshall's confession. I had to do it that day. I couldn't just stand by and let it die. I stole the detective's ID and dressed like him. I planned to take out the evidence. I wasn't expecting Officer Meekins. I knocked him out. Managed to escape. I knew which areas wouldn't be caught on the camera. There wasn't any murder in the evidence room at 5:15. Ooh, I don't like that.
So the supposed victim was really you.
But there's one thing I still don't understand. Traces of a large quantity of blood were found on the floor on the evidence room. If no one was murdered, then how could that be?
Officer Meekins managed to cut his own hand. My guess is he's the donor.
It was way too much blood for such a small donation. Yep, because he's a good old sheriff. I had to do it that day. I couldn't just stand by and let it die. Okay, we're gonna press that. Why'd you have to do it that day? I know why. Please, statute of limitations. When you say it, you mean... Do you even have to ask, partner? SL9 incident. 2 years have passed since that case was closed. It was going to completely end with the transferal that day. Not if I have anything to do with it. That incident's not over. But what did you hope to accomplish by sneaking into the evidence room? When a case is closed, only the case's lead detective can look through the evidence. I wanted to have a look at it myself one more time. No matter what the cost. I don't care what anyone says, partner. That case is mine. But Officer Marshall wasn't in charge of that investigation. Why does he care so much about it? That day was my last chance. That's why I stole the detective's ID and dressed like him. I planned to take out the evidence. How'd you plan on taking it out? Why'd you disguise yourself as Detective Goodman? If I didn't make it look like Goodman was carrying out the evidence transferal, I'd be arrested for stealing evidence, which wouldn't get me anywhere. So you did it to fool the security camera.
And the detective's ID card.
I stole that the morning of the incident. So that really was why Goodman started filling out the lost item report. I returned his ID card. I left it on the floor in the prosecutor's office parking lot. The ID card I found was left there by Officer Marshall. So essentially, you managed to succeed despite your lack of foresight.
What do you mean, partner?
I mean the fingerprint activated lock, of course. No matter how well you disguise yourself, you can't change your fingerprints. Under normal circumstances, you wouldn't have been able to open that locker yourself. But you could because a rubber glove just happened to get stuck in the door. That means Detective Goodman must have opened the locker before Officer Marshall. Wasn't back to Officer Meekins, I knocked him out. Pulled a knife on Officer Meekins and tried to drive him off? Let's just say I was a little surprised. I only planned on being in the evidence room for no more than 5 minutes. I didn't think anyone would actually come in during that short time.
Officer Meekins certainly is a one-in-a-million type of person. Taking a detective for an intruder and demanding to be shown his ID.
I'll have to think a little more about his raise this year. When did Edgeworth get so much influence?
Anyway, he threw himself at me and I ended up cutting him slightly. I'm sorry it had to turn out that way, with me knocking him out and everything.
By the way, what happened to your knife?
Oh, you mean this one?
I don't know what to say.
So you knocked Officer Meekins out and...
Managed to escape. I knew which areas wouldn't be caught on the camera. So you did your research beforehand.
Those who go into the desert unprepared don't live long, partner.
I didn't think it would make a difference, though. The security tape is raised every 6 hours. If all had gone as planned, no footage would have been left. However, you bloodied your coat in your struggle with Officer Meekins.
If someone was in the security room when I came out, the jig would have been up. I opened my locker and stashed it in there.
What was Officer Meekins doing during that time?
What else? He was sleeping like a baby. So what you're saying is on the day.
There wasn't any murder in the evidence room at 515. But the blood found at the scene certainly indicates a crime took place.
What are you, blind? The victim shown on that tape is me, and I'm not dead yet, partner.
So you stole the evidence from that locker?
Actually, no, I didn't.
Why not?
When I opened the locker, the evidence was already gone. What? Mr. Edgeworth, where is that evidence?
It's still missing, Your Honor.
That's a problem.
Goodman's locker was already empty. Someone else stole the evidence.
Officer Marshall, may I ask you one thing? Fire away, partner. It's a free country.
Just remember, I'm also free to decide whether or not to answer. Why did you do this? Stealing detective's ID, injuring a police officer? This is no small offense. Moreover, you're an officer yourself. This will have serious consequences. It can't just be forgiven with a simple cut in salary. Not that salary cuts are ever a valid solution.
Like I said, this isn't your case. This one is mine. And I'll do anything it takes to get an answer I'm satisfied with. The witness has an unusual amount of zeal. Let's hear more.
I can't just forget the SL9 incident. You know why? I mean, am I supposed to present something of why you can't forget this, or am I just supposed to present? Press it. That case was solved 2 years ago, wasn't it?
That's the reason the evidence was stored in the evidence room.
Joe Dark was convicted for his crimes. The one thing I can say for sure is he deserved his sentence.
I remember the Joe Dark case. It involved serial murders, didn't it? I don't intend to complain about how it turned out, but there's something that still bothers me. Something went down at that trial. Something no one will talk about. What happened? I don't know. That's what I'm trying to find out.
Why is he so concerned with that incident? I should present him with what I think his real reason is. Had a feeling we'd wind up here sooner or later. Everyone involved here is related in some way to that case. I'd better take another look at the files. Okay, we're gonna have a peek at this. Perpetrator Joe Dark, crime, serial murder, sentence, death. It's just fine. Victim, Edward Jones, Jason Knight, Rachel Moss, Kirby, Jeb Bates, Neil Marshall. So, Jones, Kirby, Bates, Marshall, Moss, Knight. Marshall is Marshall, so I'm assuming they're related. Can I check? Edgeworth, Witness, Lana Sky, Emma Sky. Bruce Goodman. This guy is Jake Marshall, Angel Star. I'm assuming it's this I gotta produce, but I'm just not sure if he's gonna have a follow-up of a... Let's present it. Officer Marshall, I think I understand. I think I know why you care so much about the SL9 incident. Sounds like you've been sipping too much cactus juice, partner. I have the SL9 incident file here. The name Marshall is mentioned in here. In a list of murder victims. Neil Marshall. Are you related to this man? Neil Marshall? Yeah, I'm sure you've heard the name. 2 years ago, he received the same lousy prosecutor award you got.
What? A prosecutor?
You must be talking about the King of Prosecutors Award. Now I remember, Prosecutor Neil Marshall. He handled the SL9 case before I did.
That's right, he was killed,
And the case fell into your hands.
but what's his relation to you?
Brother? He was my brother. He was investigating the murders with Damon Gant, then Deputy Chief of Police. The group of detectives I was part of worked under them. We were desperate to prosecute the killer. Joe Dark. My brother fought Dark and was killed. That was the first time Dark left behind any evidence. That's all we needed. He was arraigned and incarcerated. The case was finally closed. At least, according to the police public records.
What do you mean?
My brother couldn't have been killed by Joe Dark. I knew my brother better than anyone. No one could have beaten him in a fight. And that's it? That's your reason for your insane actions? There's more to my brother's death than what the records say. No matter how much you try to hide it, you can't fool me.
Well, at least one thing's for certain. Now we know what happened at the police department on the day of the crime.
That was the last day of the SL9 case, Kabiro. Not satisfied with his resolution, Officer Marshall planned to steal the evidence. Disguised himself as Detective Goodman, he entered the evidence room. Officer Meekins confronted him, so he rendered him unconscious and fled. Yes, that mystery has finally been cleared up. No murder took place at the police department that day. Things that happen by chance never cease to amaze. Exactly the same time as the murder at the prosecutor's office, this fake murder was going on at the police department. Fake murder. Chance. It's gotta be more than just that.
So if no one was murdered at the police department on the day of the crime, that means the murder in the prosecutor's office parking lot was the real one.
Which in turn means only one person could have committed that crime. Chief Prosecutor Lana Sky. But wait, a verdict wasn't reached in yesterday's trial. Which is why we examined the incident at the police department today. But there's only one reason the defendant was not convicted yesterday. There yet remained the mystery of the simultaneous murder at the police department. It seems to me this boy's got the draw on you, partner. All of the mysteries at the police department have been resolved, no doubt about it. Our sole murder took place at the prosecutor's office. The only suspect is Lana Sky, and the testimony of one Miss Angel Starr is completely incontestable. If you have a response, make it a single word or less. Objection. Arg. I rest my case. Arg.
It seems this trial has reached its conclusion. There's no room for doubt.
Well done, Mr. Wright. Thanks to you, I didn't need to waste my time disproving the alleged murder at the police department. There's no doubt what I proved today is true. The apparent murder in the security camera's tape really was fake. But I didn't realize that would end up proving Lana guilty.
Now then, the time for the verdict has arrived. This court finds the defendant.
Uh-oh. Your Honor. Wait. Emma, you finally returned. The defense has an objection, a scientific objection, right? What do you mean, right?
Mr. Wright, are you this girl's guardian?
Your Honor. In a sense. Please, Your Honor, all I'm asking is for a minute of your time. Please hear me out. Mr. Edgeworth, please. I don't want to leave any loose ends. You want a minute? I'll give you 3. I was kind of in shock. I mean, finding out the SL9 incident referred to the Joe Dark killings. Now that she mentions it. The names of both Sky sisters were in that file. Well, that's when I figured it out. I mean, what Officer Marshall was trying to do that day. So I knew his fingerprint had nothing to do with the crime. Though that's only one thing, the other handprint. You mean the traces of blood found on Detective Gumshoe's locker?
But no fingerprints were found on it, right?
No, but I examined it scientifically, I'd be sure to find a clue. So, ran over there and looked at it again. So did you find something? No.
Huh?
Sorry, I guess I'm not much of a scientific investigator after all.
Is that all?
Please don't be mad, I'm just a high school student.
And I'm just an attorney.
But Mr. Wright, those traces of blood are the only clue we have. If we can't find something wrong with them... Please, Mr. Wright, you're a professional. If anyone could save Lana, it's you.
Oh, bad. Oh boy. Time's up. Now then, Mr. Wright. With regard to the incident at the police department, does any reasonable doubt remain?
It appears the defense is troubled by the other blood mark. Looking at the floor plans, a handprint was discovered around here. Is there a problem with this? Mr. Wright, I'm sorry, I can't be of more use. But still, if you can't find anything wrong with that blood mark, Lana will be...
Please answer my question, Mr. Wright. We don't have all day.
Yes, Your Honor. If ever I've needed to concentrate, it's now. What could be wrong with that handprint in Detective Gumshoe's locker? Could there be something I'm missing? This guy was in the way, right? Is that what we're going for? He would have been in the way of the locker, so that handprint must have happened after the fact. I object. Objection! This handprint left at the crime scene clearly shows a contradiction. The only thing that seems clear is your grasping, Mr. Wright.
You've been staring pretty intently at those floor plans. Tell me, is there a problem with them?
Yes, this is strange. Take a look at these floor plans. Something is missing. Missing? You mean something hasn't been drawn on there? Yes, something that, when drawn, will completely change the meaning of that blood mark.
Let us pray the defense isn't simply trying to buy time. Very well, Mr. Wright.
All this evidence here. There's something I can use.
The question is, which item can prove something is missing in the floor plans?
The tape. Again.
As I say back west, even a blind man can hit with a buckshot. That is, so long as he's facing the general direction.
It seems Mr. Wright's not sure which direction to face. It's no use. The more evidence there is, the greater the chance of me being wrong. Just calm down, Mr. Wright. Try and remember what the evidence room was like on the day of the crime. What does it bother me about the blood mark?
Please allow me another chance, Your Honor. I'll prove it this time. Let's pray the defense is simply trying to buy time. Very well, Mr. Wright.
Oh, okay. I can't point at the tape, but we'll go with the blue badger.
What about that piece of plywood? Okay, right idea, wrong evidence. The blue badger, mascot of the police force. Defender of truth, guardian of proof.
Explain yourself, Mr. Wright.
Please look at the floor plans of the crime scene. Blue badger is not here. So watch what happens when we put him in. This is where he was dancing at the time of the crime. Well, what? That's right. So long as the blue badger is dancing here, it would be impossible to place a handprint at this spot on the locker. Ooh, nailed it. So that means, just exactly what does this, mean?
Means it can't be done.
What are you saying? Blood traces were undeniably found on that locker. Don't look at me. I didn't put it there.
Mr. Wright, think it through scientifically. Emma. On that afternoon, Officer Meekins was the one who brought the blue badger to the evidence room, right? After you put it down, it would be impossible to leave a handprint on that door. Does that mean this blood mark was left there before the blue badger was brought in?
Just one moment. I will not allow such far-fetched balderdash in my courtroom.
You sound far-fetched, Your Honor. But it's the only possible explanation. February 21st, in the police department's evidence room.
Blood was spilled not once, but twice.
But how?
One time was captured on this tape taken by the security camera. Officer Meekins cut his hand from which a trivial amount of blood fell. The problem is, the other time. Someone bled prior to the struggle shown on this tape. It had to have been Detective Goodman when he was really murdered.
That's ridiculous. I refuse to accept your absurd claim.
The murder portrayed in the security tape has been proven to be a fake. However, that does not explain the blood mark found on the locker.
So that assuming this murder you report really happened, when did it take place?
The badges show evidence that proves when it occurred.
When did the first incident occur?
Summarize the defense claims that prior to Officer Meekins being cut by Jake Marshall, who was posing as Detective Goodman, another incident took place in that evidence room.
That's right, the blood mark on this locker proves it.
Very well, then tell us. When did this first incident occur? As Mr. Edgeworth said, proof must be presented.
Proof that shows when the murder took place. There's only one piece of evidence that can show that.
Now then, will the defense please present its evidence? What shows when the first crime took place?
Meekins. I mean, unless we count this all sevens at 420 is... It's got to be this, but I hope they don't peg me on what it is on top of it. It has to be the ID card of everyone that entered the room. If the crime took place inside the evidence room, then the killer would have had to enter it. And in order to do so, an ID card would have been required.
An ID card? Oh, the ID card record.
Officer Meekins brought the Blue Badger panel into the evidence room at, let's see here, 4:50.
If the crime took place before that time, then it would be 4:40 p.m. Miles Edgeworth, just what have you done?
I never would have figured you had the nerve, boy. drop the act, witness. It doesn't take a lot of thought to figure out it couldn't have been me.
Nope, I ain't getting it. I'm afraid I don't understand either.
It's clear from the luminol test that blood was there. However, when the second crime took place, both Officer Meekins and Officer Marshall failed to notice the blood. That means the blood from the first crime was wiped away by the real murderer. I would have had just 10 minutes to murder the victim, carry his body away, and clean up the blood. Unfortunately, that's physically impossible.
That would mean the crime must have taken place before Mr. Edgeworth entered the evidence room.
Let's look at the chart again. Well, there's this employee. One of the card number remaining, 7777777. Talk about a lucky number.
But wait, that doesn't make sense. How could Detective Goodman have entered the evidence room?
Since there's no record of his car being used beforehand, he must have entered along with the real murderer. That's the only plausible explanation. He went in with 7777777.
Mr. Edgeworth, please look into this ASAP. Find out whose ID number is
7777777. That's one 7 too many, Your Honor. Unfortunately, I'm unable to look up the owner of that ID card, at least at present.
What? Explain yourself, son.
ID number 7777777 belongs to someone with a rank of captain or higher, someone who is a so-called executive officer. We don't have the authority to inquire into such a person's identity. Well, that's ridiculous. Just how? I'm not finished talking, Mr. Wright. There is one situation in which we can be granted such authority.
An official charge filed against an executive is accepted.
An official charge? You're all alike, aren't you? With your cover-ups and your forgeries. That's how the prosecutor's office operates. I take pride in my work, Officer Marshall. I would appreciate it if you would keep your slander to yourself.
Slander, is it? Okay. Let me ask a question.
Yes.
No, not to you, to her, the defendant sitting over there. Your own little executive.
Anna. Don't be stupid. She's been charged with murder. Of course we've looked up her IT number. And it's not 7777777.
Don't play me for a fool, partner. That's not what I want to ask. All I want to know is one thing about that incident. The SL9 incident.
Answer me this, Chief Prosecutor. In that trial 2 years ago, did you really only use legitimate evidence? Do you need the witness to repeat his question, Chief Prosecutor? I heard him fine, Mr. Edgeworth. 2 years ago, it was in charge of the prosecution for that trial. At the time, occasionally, we felt the powerlessness of the law. At least I did. Lana, I became a prosecutor in order to suppress crime with the law. But before I realized it, we were the ones being suppressed by the law.
Defendant, just what are you saying?
I'll ask you again, Chief Prosecutor. During that trial 2 years ago, did you really present all the evidence in court? Did you look me, an investigator in that crime, in the eye and say that you did?
Chief Prosecutor, you did.
I don't have to, Officer Marshall. Why won't you answer him? Drastic crimes require drastic measures. That's just the way it is. We did what we had to, in order for him to get the verdict he deserved. But Lana, even if it involved forging evidence.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
No.
No! Order, order, order!
Well, it's hard to get over. One of his remarks caused such a stir. The chaos in the courtroom could not be quelled. We would have to wait until the following day. So we have to push off the day. To be continued. Wow, that was... So they did fake evidence. Whap, whap, whap. Wait, are we out? Huh. February 24th, 3:12 p.m. at Wright & Co. Law Offices. I'm so sorry, Mr. Wright. I'm sorry for what my sister said. Drastic crimes require drastic measures. That's just the way it is. We did what we had to, in order for him to get the verdict he deserved. I didn't know. I never knew that the SL9 incident was just another name for Joe Dark killings. Sounds like everyone's heard about these killings but me. Lana wanted Dark convicted so badly. That's why she used me. That's why she used what happened to me.
What do you mean, what happened to you?
It's all there in the file. Joe Dark's last victim was Prosecutor Neil Marshall. When he murdered Officer Marshall's brother, he left behind an incriminating piece of evidence.
What did you have to do with those killings, Emma?
On the night Prosecutor Neil Marshall was murdered, Joe Dark tried to kill me.
What? He tried to kill you?
Officer Marshall's brother, Neil, was only trying to save me.
So that means you.
Yes, I was a witness in the Joe Dark trial.
I didn't see that one coming.
It happened 2 years ago. It was right about the time of the year, too. There was a terrible thunderstorm that day, unusual for the season. I was alone in my sister's office. We were planning to eat dinner together once she finished her work. Then suddenly, this terrifying man came bursting into the office.
Joe Dark.
It seemed like he was running from someone. He pulled out a knife and screamed at me. I didn't know what was going on. Just then, Prosecutor Marshall showed up.
Jake Marshall's brother.
Joe Dark tried to take me hostage. But before he could, Mr. Marshall tackled him. Then,
What happened?
I'll never forget it. Lightning struck and the lights went out. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning flashed outside the window, lighting up the office for an instant. What I saw then burned a permanent picture in my mind. I can still see it now.
Permanent picture.
I don't remember the moment when Dark stabbed Mr. Marshall.
So you weren't able to testify about that?
No, I was only asked about when I was attacked. That must be why she made up the crime.
Made it up? You mean provided bogus evidence?
The prosecutor's office wanted that guilty verdict so badly. Lana forged the evidence and Mr. Edgeworth used it.
Edgeworth?
Yes, but I'm sure he didn't know anything about it. He couldn't have known he was being given false evidence. Even so, that's when it all started. The rumors about Mr. Edgeworth, I mean. It's all my fault. If I could have just testified properly, none of this would have happened.
So it's true, even though he may not have known it. Edgeworth really was involved in falsifying evidence.
After that case ended, Lana was never the same. She became cold like she is today.
She must not have been able to face up to what she did, especially not to Emma. What was this perfect picture? What did you see in the instant the crime occurred?
Drake knocked down Mr. Marshall and raised his knife. Neil Marshall was stabbed right in front of this poor girl. I don't remember what happened after that. Apparently I passed out. I came to, Lana was cradling me in her arms. Poor Emma. You've been through so much. I couldn't bring myself to testify about that instant. I tried, but the words just wouldn't come out. I drew a picture, but it wasn't any good. 2 years ago, you must have been 14. That's understandable. Once it was all over, I made up my mind. I decided that when I grew up, I'd become a scientific investigator. I want to be able to fight crime with my testimonies and find the evidence to make an airtight case. That way Lana would never have to forge any.
I see. I think I'm finally starting to understand what makes Emma tick. But there's still something that bothers me about that crime. There's something that's puzzling me, Emma.
What is it?
You said you were in Lana's office at the time, right?
That's right.
Why then would a serial killer come running in there? Not only that, but he was being chased by a prosecutor?
Oh, there's no mystery there. Joe Dark had been taken in for questioning that day.
Taken in for questioning? You mean by the police?
Of course. This happened at the police department. He tried to run away halfway through the interview and fled into my sister's office. But why did he run all the way over to your sister's office? Because the detective offices and the questioning rooms are right across from the elevator. Across from the elevator? But Lana was the chief prosecutor, wasn't she? No, silly. Didn't I tell you? 2 years ago, Lana was a detective. She was the best in the entire force. What? That's news to me. After the Joe Dark case, she was transferred to the prosecutor's office and made chief prosecutor. Lana used to be a detective. I better have another talk with her. Okay, we're gonna move right to the detention center. And give a little speaky speak and mean like, hey, I'm finding out things about you. Lana, Mr. Wright, it seems I keep causing you trouble. Falsifying evidence? I didn't think you were the type. Criminals don't mind playing foul. Why should we? But Lana, if you're wrong, an innocent person might be found guilty. Believe me, I understand the risks. Lana, Emma told me about you. Oh? About how you were a detective 2 years ago. And how the SO9 incident was the reason for your transfer to the prosecutor's office. That's right. Could you fill me in on the details, especially about that unusual change of jobs? I suppose you have a right to know, Mr. Wright. Yeah, today's trial. A lot of revelations were uncovered at the trial today, not the least of which was the fact that this case is largely connected to another one 2 years ago. Evidence from that case was stolen as well, though I expected as much. I know how obsessive Officer Marshall can be. That trial, it really wasn't fair, was it? I believed in you, Lana. I believed that no matter what happened, you'd always stick to the truth. It couldn't be helped, Emma. At the trial 2 years ago, I sold my soul. Well, all drama aside, the fact of the matter is, at 5:15, there was no murder at the police department. Tell me it's not true, Lana. What the witness star said. About you stabbing Mr. Goodman with a knife. Lana, I don't understand. Why won't you tell us? Emma, this doesn't involve just me. I don't think I've ever seen Lana look so fazed before. It's true, I was a member of the police force 2 years ago. She was amazing. They still talk about all the cases she and Chief Gant cracked together. Chief Gant? He was a deputy chief of police back then, but he still worked the crime scenes. David Gant. He was everything I aspired to be. They were the best team ever. They solved crimes before their reports could even be filed. Really idolizes her big sister. But now you're chief prosecutor. What happened? I've always planned on becoming a prosecutor. The reason I became a detective was to gain experience investigating crime scenes so she could use that experience in court, right? Gant's help in the SL9 case was crucial to its resolution. After that, he became chief of police and arranged my transfer to the prosecutor's office. Yeah, I should ask more about this investigation of theirs 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I was second in command of the detectives investigating Dark. Second in command, that means the investigation lead was David Gant, right? Yes, Deputy Gant and I shared the same office and the same investigation. Even at the same office. We led a team of the best detectives on the force. Detective Goodman was whose case it was, Jake Marshall and Angel Starr. It was the first time Marshall worked with his brother. He was quite gung-ho. Without a doubt, Joe Dark was a serial killer. We asked him to come in for questioning. We were desperate for evidence. That was when his final murder took place. When he tried to murder Emma. Prosecutor Marshall was trying to save me from Dark. You see, the first person who happened upon the scene of the crime was me. Now you tell us. First one at the scene. David Gant and Neil Marshall were the ones questioning Dark that day. The investigation was in its final stages and Dark must have suddenly panicked. So he waited until Gant and Marshall left their guards down, then fled the room. From there, he ran straight to the office shared by Deputy Chief Gant and myself. That's where he found me. So you were the first person to run to the scene, Lana. It appears so. I was filing some papers while Gant and Marshall were questioning Dark. When I returned to my office, I saw 3 bodies on the floor and smelled blood.
3 bodies. Prosecutor Marshall, the victim, Emma, who had passed out,
And the suspect, Joe Dark. During the struggle, it seems Mr. Marshall struck a final blow before he died. Joe Dark had incurred a minor concussion and lay unconscious.
What did you do?
To be honest, I panicked. I picked up Emma, carried her out of the room, and just held her.
Can't blame her after all her sister must have gone through.
After that, I placed Dark under immediate arrest.
Let me get this straight. You're all involved in the SL9 incident.
That's right, quite a coincidence,
I don't buy it.
What are you saying?
There's no way everyone involved in this trial was also involved in that incident just by chance.
But that case was solved 2 years ago.
At least one person went to extremes because they didn't believe it was truly solved.
Officer Marshall. Yes, his actions came as a surprise to me as well. Ever since his brother died, he changed completely. I guess he wasn't convinced with the ruling against Joe Dark.
Unless he thinks Joe Dark wasn't a killer but a victim and it was actually his brother who was the killer.
Life doesn't end with the closing of a case. Everyone has to live the rest of their lives with their memories.
That case just might not be over yet. Emma was assaulted by Dark at the police department, right?
Yes, in the office that Damon Gant and I share.
The office that Mr. Grant now occupies by himself, the chief's office. Maybe we should have a look at the chief's office to say for the final SL9 murder. Excuse us, we have a place to go.